What's up, guys and gals? Welcome to Rauta. It's not so much a given thing that you actually hear anything original after being a few years in the metal. That is, all the genres you go through seem to sound pretty much like something that you previously heard already. However, every now and then there are bands which just kind of surprise you pants down. One of them is, for me, going band with Ottone Pesante from Italy. Ottone Pesante, yes, very much. And it seems like this is no newcomer with this album, but however, it's first time for me anyway. And this one is called DoomooD. 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 Well, it's a kind of a word play anyway, and it kind of describes this band in an interesting way. Glossy Digiback includes a cover that kind of gives you indication what this album is all about, but to be honest, it's quite horrible cover anyway. And I don't know why a band such as this would need to underline what lies in within, I mean. And to be honest, if I was browsing CDs, I don't know, online record store or a normal record store, got to say, I would skip this one right away. Also, I would skip this band because of the name. It doesn't really give me anything, that is, because I'm not Italian. Now, there is a story behind it, because this actually refers to brass metal. And that's kind of what's going on with this CD, actually. Now, this is an interesting case, because what is, or how it was defined with the promotion letter which came with this one, was actually heavy brass metal. Now, what does it even mean? Now, brass is a type of metal, obviously, but it's also a term that is used for these kind of instruments, well, in orchestras, you know, like trumpets and trombones and whatever. And that's exactly what's going on here. Instead of guitar and bass, this band is all about using, well, these kind of instruments right here in order to do metal, that is with drums. Now, how does that play out? Does that even make any sense? Is there any kind of place for this kind of music in the first place? Now, the curious thing is, actually, I would say there is. This band is not on Metal Archives for some reason. Maybe it wasn't exactly metal enough for some people, but I think this deserves to be there, because even though it lacks these kind of a classic metal instruments, bass guitar, electric guitar, and all that stuff, it is very much like metal. Now, if you think bands like Apocalyptica, which basically started with doing Metallica with 4 cellos and then kind of proceeded to do their own kind of music, this is a little bit similar to that idea. Also, bands like Therion and Night, which introduced opera singing into metal, are something that kind of introduced something rather unusual, something non-metallic, if you will, into metal music, and still made it sound very metal. Now, I think with Ottone Pesante is doing is exactly quite the same, yet also different at the same time, because these brass instruments actually make it sound kind of unique at the same time, and still it sounds very metallic. Now, being these instruments being metallic even more than wooden guitars and bass, you know. Now the sound is quite different, but after a couple of tracks you're pretty much right there. And the music is something which I would say along the lines of traditional doom metal and heavy metal, but it's mostly instrumental. And I think that's one of the weaker parts of this whole music with this album. Now the thing is, while there are some actually quite good female vocals included, it's not enough. So this sounds more like instrumental soundtrack, or rather than being a kind of a full-blown metal album. And that might be the reason why this is not accepted on Metal Archives. I truly don't know, just merely guessing. But the funny thing is, because of this style of the songs, you know, the songwriting and the sound on this album, it actually makes sound quite doomy. So it's kind of like instrumental doom metal. And obviously some parts are kind of a heavy metal, because it's like the early doom style, not with some modern bands which are doing some 20-minute tracks with very kind of a easy to forget kind of riffs, you know, and lacking the kind of a good classic doom metal vocalist. We're talking about bands like Candlemass and Vitus here, but I mean so many modern bands have just mediocre heavy metal vocalists and then some 20-minute tracks which is just like only certain doom metal fanatics will love that stuff, but not everybody. Now, Ottone Pesante comes from a little bit different direction because it doesn't really have this kind of a epicness of what some trad doom bands have, and because of the lack of vocals, it's quite a far away from bands like Black Sabbath, and that's cool. But still, there is something very, very doomy with this album, and some of that becomes the root is with the instruments, and the other part is how the songs are actually structured. So it is actually sounding quite nice, but still, with all that flow and certain atmosphere, I felt that the album could actually benefit of a little bit, better riffs, to be honest, better songwriting, and because of the lack of vocals, it just feels a little bit empty and hollow. Now, I'm not definitely saying this is for everybody. This might be even too marginal even for doom metalheads. But I would still say that this is something you need to listen to because it's actually unique in style. And the way the band actually uses these brass instruments is very fascinating. So I kind of feel like I want to like even more, this whole band, because I think it kind of deserves more attention and all that stuff. But you really can't fake it. I mean, if the songs are not that good, then they are not. But all that being said, give it a listen. It's an interesting choice of instruments, and it's interesting what these guys are doing. So definitely a interesting band. With all that being said, you go click. Like I said, it's not on Metal Archives, but you will find some information and at least some teaser material of the band right here on their homepage. So with that information, click and give it a listen. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye.